Hi, everybody. My name is Pam of Pam Sheppard Ministries. You can Google with my name. You can read the description if you're watching on YouTube. And you can turn on your captions if you're watching a video other than actually on YouTube to know more about me and more about what I do and what this ministry is all about. Today, I have been thinking about this week's videos and the subject that I would like to overall bring forth. And that is how to endure and overcome in these times. So my thoughts go today at what are some of the dangers of being born again. And I'm going to say it comes with the territory, particularly for women. And if you are a woman that has a calling to ministry, there is a set model, a template, a procedure as to how the enemy is going to come against you. And when he comes against you, it's going to be at your feminine core, your femininity. If you recall, in the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter, it is written there where God speaks and says in regards to Eve that her enemies are going to be those of her own household. And even her enemies are going to come from other women and her children. That as a result of Eve's use as a vessel to receive what Satan brought her, and then Adam co-signed it, sin came into the world, and all womankind are going to go through a similar attack according to their circumstances, their race, where they were brought up, their parents, their neighborhood. He will work with all of that. But the process, the focus is to cause you, at whatever stage in life you're in, to pick the wrong man or allow the wrong man to pick you. That's the more passive way of putting it. Because after all, the Bible says that it is a man who finds a woman. It is not a woman who goes out and seeks a man. He has got to find her. So this is the core of what will happen to all of us, that the enemy will send to us the wrong man. Now, the first thing I want to say to you is, in picking a mate, you have to know 2 things. And that is, what are your goals in life on a natural level at first? Because if you don't know that you're called to the ministry, you really can't focus on that. So you have to focus on where are you headed and where is he headed? And then you have to seek compatibility and diversity, because you don't want him to be exactly like you, because then you won't have anybody who's strong where you're weak. So he has to have some diversity, but he also needs to have some similarity, and he needs to be the kind of guy that if and when your goals begin to change, he can adjust. And you need to be like that too, able to adjust. Now, I have 3 husbands, and I picked my first husband when I was an unsaved atheist, not born again, not a believer. I made my best choice then than I did after I was born again. So I'm thinking that this series is going to be around the dangers that come with being born again. So, when I was an unsaved heathen, I knew myself, and I had better common sense than when I became born again. So I chose in Gary someone that was compatible to me in terms of the flesh. And when I say the flesh, my personality, my quirks, my weaknesses, my likes, my dislikes, okay? He was perfect in that sense. Now, he was a smart guy, but he was not a degreed person as I am. But I only had 1 degree when Gary and I got together. But it was him who motivated me and said, if you are tired, so tired after working 5 years for this welfare department, how can you get out of there? And I said, if I get a master's degree. And he said, get it. Go get it. Now, ironically, by the time I got it, we were not together. But he was the one who motivated me to get it. Now, here is where I went off in picking him. The first thing you have to ask a potential mate is, what are your beliefs? And I'm not talking about God or anything, but just what are your understandings, your perception? Where are you headed? What are your dreams? What would you like to be? Okay? I at the time was in human services. And when I ended up getting the master's, I ended up into counseling, therapy with people. And then I also got into administration in terms of developing programs and advocacy for the common man. So I should have found out before we married, where did he stand in terms of human services, in terms of helping people? What was his goal? Now, our marriage was going on perfectly. And in fact, all of my girlfriends were jealous of me because of the way that Gary treated me. And he was, man, I mean, he was big and muscular and strong, but he was a happy-go-lucky, friendly kind of guy, open, not intimidated by the fact that he didn't have the degrees that I had. And he was supportive of me. So when I had friends by my house, Gary would cook, okay, and bring and serve. I was like, whoa, check this out. And the rest of the women, they would go home and intimidate their boyfriends because of the way they saw Gary treating me. When I was pregnant, he did all of the cooking and the cleaning and worked a full-time job. Not because I made any demands, but that was the way he was. And I believe today that if our marriage had lasted, he would be alive today. But I ended up preaching his funeral when he was 1 week shy of being 39 years old, having died of a massive heart attack. But he had that heart attack because he was careless with his life and with the warnings and stuff that the doctors had given him. And by that time, we were divorced, but we were back to being best friends again. So much so that his mother contacted me and said, please, he would want you to do his eulogy. So here's where I went wrong. I never asked Gary, what is your main dream? What do you want to be? And I didn't find this out until after we broke up. Because we broke up because I discovered Gary was selling drugs. And I was outraged. Here I am working to help addicts, and you out here selling drugs on the down low, but dealing with me, I'm going to find it out. And when I came home early one day, and he was, I caught him doing this thing. He wasn't using drugs, but he had one of them in there who was selling for him. And I said, get out of my house. And that day was the end of our marriage. Okay? What happened was our life goals at the time were at the opposite chain of life, the opposite perspective. And when I asked him, after years went by and I talked to him, I said, Gary, did I do anything? Was I responsible for us, breaking up? Was I pressuring you about buying the house and all that you thought you needed to have drug money to do that? And he said, no. And he looked me in my face and he said, I didn't know my father, but until I was 18, 19 years old. And my father was a drug dealer. And he got shot down on the street and died. And I always wanted to be like my father. And so I decided I wanted to sell drugs like he did. That kind of thing should be known before you get married. You understand? That kind of thing should be known. So I'm not through with this. We're going to move on slow. But that's my major point, is that a born-again woman gets foolish like a babe, like a child, because that's what we are, and we lose all our common sense. I will go on.